The military power and defense of the empire. The Mali Empire was not only known for its wealth and learning, but also for its formidable military strength. Its army was the shield that protected its vast territories, trade routes, and people. Without a powerful and disciplined force, the empire could never have maintained its unity or expanded across such a wide and diverse region. The structure of the army. The army of Mali was carefully organized, reflecting the empire's advanced system of governance. At its head stood the Mansa, who was both political and military leader. Beneath him were the Farbas, governors and generals responsible for specific provinces or military campaigns. The army was divided into specialized units: infantry, cavalry, archers, and scouts. Each had its own role in battle and in maintaining peace across the empire. Soldiers were trained not only for war, but also for discipline, loyalty, and respect towards civilians. The army's size varied depending on the era, but during its peak, Mali could mobilize tens of thousands of men, including a powerful cavalry that was feared across West Africa. The cavalry, the pride of Mali. The cavalry was the elite force of the empire. Horses, though rare and expensive in West Africa, symbolized power and nobility. Only the most skilled and loyal warriors were chosen to ride them. These mounted soldiers wore leather armor reinforced with metal or crocodile skin. They carried spears, swords, and shields, moving swiftly across the savannas. The cavalry allowed the empire to respond quickly to threats, chase enemies, and maintain control over distant provinces. The horse was not only a weapon of war, but also a mark of prestige. Great warriors were honored with ceremonial horses, and their bravery was celebrated by griots for generations. The infantry, guardians of the land. The infantry formed the backbone of Mali's military. These were soldiers drawn from villages and provinces across the empire. Armed with spears, bows, and shields, they defended towns, escorted caravans, and fought in major battles. Soldiers were trained in formations that emphasized coordination and unity. Their discipline allowed the army to overcome larger or more mobile enemies. When not at war, many of these soldiers returned to farming or trade, symbolizing the deep connection between military service and civilian life in Mali. The commanders and generals. Mali's military success also came from the brilliance of its commanders. The Farbas were chosen not only for their noble birth, but also for their intelligence and courage. They led by example, riding alongside their men in battle and sharing their hardships. They reported directly to the Mansa, who rewarded victories with land, wealth, and honor. The generals of Mali were also responsible for maintaining peace within their regions, suppressing rebellions, and ensuring that taxes and trade remained secure. The fortresses and defensive systems. The Mali Empire built and maintained fortified cities and outposts across its borders. These strongholds protected the empire from external threats, such as desert raiders or rival kingdoms. In regions near trade routes, fortresses were placed strategically to guard caravans and collect taxes. Watchtowers were built along major roads and rivers, allowing soldiers to send warnings quickly if danger approached. Although stone fortifications were rare in the savannah, many cities were surrounded by thick earthen walls, reinforced with wooden stakes and guarded by soldiers day and night. Weapons and technology. The warriors of Mali used a variety of weapons suited to their environment and tactics. Spears, bows and arrows, swords, and javelins were the most common. The blacksmiths of Mali were highly respected as they forged weapons with great skill and spiritual ceremony. Ironworking was not just a craft, but a sacred art, passed down through generations. Protective gear included leather armor, helmets, and shields made of hide. They provided flexibility and defense in the hot African climate. Military discipline and training. Training was essential to Mali's military power. Young men were taught courage, endurance, and loyalty from an early age. Soldiers were trained in both single combat and group tactics. They practiced formations, ambushes, and the defense of caravans. Griots often recited tales of great warriors to inspire them, reminding soldiers that bravery was not only a duty, but a legacy. Discipline was strict. Cowardice, theft, or betrayal were punished severely, while loyalty and valor were rewarded with land, gold, or titles. The defense of the trade routes. One of the army's main missions was to protect the trans-Saharan trade routes. Bandits and rival kingdoms constantly threatened the flow of gold and goods across the desert. Mali stationed soldiers at key points along these routes and established patrols to ensure safe passage for merchants. Because of this protection, traders from distant lands trusted Mali and continued to enrich its markets. The empire's ability to guarantee safety was one of the reasons it remained powerful for so long. Expansion and conquest. Under Sundiata Keita and his successors, Mali expanded through both diplomacy and military conquest. Neighboring kingdoms were defeated or integrated peacefully through alliances. Victories brought tribute, trade, and loyalty. The conquered regions retained their local leaders who governed under the authority of the Mansa. This system reduced rebellion and kept the empire stable. Mali's army did not seek destruction, but order. Conquered people were treated fairly as long as they respected the empire's laws and paid tribute. Rebellions and internal conflicts. As the empire grew, maintaining unity became harder. Some provinces, distant from Nyani, tried to rebel or withhold taxes. In such cases, the army was sent to restore order. Sometimes the Mansa himself led these campaigns, demonstrating his authority. Rebellions were crushed quickly, for discipline and loyalty were the foundation of Mali's peace. The role of the navy. Though Mali was a land empire, it also maintained river fleets on the Niger River. These fleets transported soldiers, goods, and messages between regions. Boats made of wood or reeds were used for patrol and trade, ensuring that the empire's communication and commerce remained open and protected. The spiritual aspect of warfare. War in Mali was not only a physical battle, but also a spiritual act. Warriors prayed to the ancestors and sought blessings from marabouts and griots before going to war. Amulets, charms, and sacred words were believed to protect them in battle. Many soldiers fought with faith that they were defending not only their empire, but the will of the ancestors. Legacy of Mali's military power. The military strength of the Mali Empire ensured its survival and greatness for centuries. It allowed the empire to protect its wealth, its culture, and its people. Even after its decline, stories of Mali's fearless cavalry and disciplined infantry continued to inspire future generations across West Africa. The empire's success showed that power is not only measured by conquest, but also by the ability to defend peace and justice. The great cities of Mali, Niani, Timbuktu, and Gao. The greatness of the Mali Empire was reflected in its cities. They were not only centers of power and trade, but also of learning, art, and culture. Among them, three stood out as symbols of the empire's strength and refinement. Niani, the imperial capital, Timbuktu, the city of knowledge, and Gao, the gateway to the east. Niani, the heart of the empire. Niani, located near the upper Niger River, was the birthplace of Sundiata Keita and the political heart of the empire. From this city, the Mansas ruled over a vast territory stretching across West Africa. The city was well organized, divided into quarters for administration, markets, and residences. The royal palace stood at the center, surrounded by courtyards, gardens, and workshops. It was both a symbol of authority and a center of decision-making. Niani was not only the seat of government, but also a thriving commercial hub. Merchants from across the empire brought gold, ivory, and grain to its markets. Artisans crafted tools, jewelry, and fabrics, while griots sang the stories of Mali's glory. The city was known for its cleanliness, order, and hospitality. Foreign travelers described it as prosperous and well-governed, a place where justice and peace prevailed. Timbuktu, the city of knowledge. Far to the north, at the edge of the Sahara, rose the legendary city of Timbuktu. Originally a small trading post founded by Tuareg nomads, it became one of the most famous cities in the medieval world under the Mali Empire. Timbuktu's location made it a natural meeting point for traders from the desert and farmers from the Niger Valley. Gold, salt, and slaves passed through its markets, but its true wealth lay in knowledge. Under the reign of Mansa Musa and his successors, Timbuktu became a center of Islamic learning. Scholars from across Africa and the Middle East came to teach and study there. The city's mosques, such as the Sankor, Jingareber, and Sidi Yahya, also served as universities. Thousands of manuscripts on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, and philosophy were copied and preserved in private libraries. Students studied under great scholars, and the city gained a reputation as one of the world's foremost centers of education. Timbuktu was also famous for its tolerance and cultural diversity. Merchants, scholars, and travelers from different lands coexisted peacefully, bound by trade and respect for knowledge. Gao, the gateway of commerce. Gao, located further east along the Niger River, was another great city of the Mali Empire. Long before becoming part of Mali, Gao was already an important trading center for goods coming from the Sahara and the Sahel. When Mali expanded under its early kings, Gao was incorporated into the empire, becoming a key military and commercial stronghold. It served as the link between Mali and other powerful kingdoms to the east. The city thrived on trade in gold, salt, and slaves. It was also known for its skilled craftsmen and its large markets filled with goods from both North and West Africa. Even after Mali's power began to wane, Gao remained influential and later became the heart of the Songhai Empire, which inherited much of Mali's administrative and cultural traditions. Urban life and society. Life in Mali's cities was dynamic and organized. Streets were busy with merchants, artisans, scholars, and travelers. Markets were held daily, offering food, cloth, spices, and livestock. Women played an important role in commerce, managing stalls and trading goods with great skill. Religion was at the center of daily life. Mosques were not only places of prayer, but also community centers where people gathered for discussions, teaching, and justice. Cultural life flourished through music, poetry, and storytelling. Griots performed in public squares, preserving history and celebrating the deeds of kings and heroes. Architecture and art. The architecture of Mali's cities reflected a mix of local traditions and Islamic influences. Houses and mosques were built from mud brick and timber, adapted to the hot climate of the Sahel. The Great Mosque of Jingarabur in Timbuktu and the Royal Palace at Niani stood as masterpieces of Sudano-Sahalan architecture, practical, beautiful, and deeply symbolic. Artisans created decorative objects from gold, wood, and leather. Their designs often carried spiritual meanings, blending artistic creativity with cultural heritage. The role of education was a cornerstone of urban life in the Mali Empire. Quranic schools taught reading, writing, and moral values to young boys and girls. Advanced students studied theology, law, and science in the great centers of learning like Timbuktu. Knowledge was not limited to religion. Scholars explored geography, medicine, and mathematics, often linking African knowledge systems with those of the wider Islamic world. The pursuit of learning gave the Mali Empire a reputation, not only for wealth, but for wisdom and enlightenment. Foreign visitors and chroniclers. Many foreign travelers visited Mali's cities and were astonished by their wealth and organization. The most famous among them was Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan scholar who visited Mali in the 13th century. He described Niani and Timbuktu as cities of great order and hospitality. He noted the generosity of the people, the respect for justice, and the devotion to learning and faith. Arab historians such as al-Umari and Ibn Khaldun also wrote about Mali, spreading its fame across the Islamic world. To them, the empire represented the height of African civilization. The cultural and economic influence of the cities. The cities of Mali were more than centers of power. They were symbols of the empire's unity and diversity. Each contributed something unique. Niani with its governance, Timbuktu with its learning, and Gal with its trade. Together, they connected Africa to the rest of the world. Through their merchants and scholars, the ideas and goods of the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and sub-Saharan Africa flowed freely. These cities became living testaments to the empire's greatness, where prosperity and knowledge went hand in hand. Legacy of Mali's urban civilization. Even after the fall of the empire, the legacy of its great cities endured. Timbuktu continued to be a center of learning for centuries. Niani remained a symbol of national pride, and Gal became the foundation of a new empire. Their history showed that African civilizations could achieve greatness through trade, culture, and knowledge as much as through military power. The story of these cities stands as a reminder that the Mali Empire was not only an empire of gold, but an empire of the mind and spirit, a place where humanity reached some of its finest achievements. The culture, arts, and traditions of the empire. The Mali Empire was not only a land of power and wealth, but also one of deep culture, creativity, and tradition. Its people expressed their identity through music, oral history, craftsmanship, and festivals that reflected both spiritual and communal life. Culture was the soul of the empire, binding its diverse peoples together under one shared heritage. The role of oral tradition. In Mali, history was not written in books, but carried in the hearts and voices of griots, or Jelewu in the Mande language. These storytellers were historians, poets, and musicians who preserved the memory of the empire across generations. The griots recited the great epic of Sundiata Keita, the founding hero, and kept alive the stories of kings, battles, and alliances. They also recorded genealogies, taught moral lessons, and provided counsel to rulers and nobles. Their role was sacred. A griot's words could inspire courage, restore peace, or remind a ruler of his duty. Through them, the people of Mali remembered who they were and where they came from. Music and instruments. Music was at the center of Malian life. It accompanied every major event: births, weddings, coronations, and harvests. It was used to honor ancestors, celebrate victories, and bring communities together. The most famous instruments were the kora, a 21-stringed harp lute, the balafon, a wooden xylophone, and the ngoni, a stringed lute. These instruments produced melodies that carried emotion, wisdom, and history. The drum held special importance. Drummers communicated across villages, sending messages through rhythm and pattern. In war, the drum commanded the army. In peace, it called the people to celebration. Songs praised heroes, mourned the dead, or expressed love for the land and family. Music was not mere entertainment. It was a form of storytelling, education, and spiritual connection. Dance and celebration. Dance was an essential part of Malian culture. Every festival, ceremony, or gathering included dancing that expressed joy, unity, and devotion. Men and women performed distinct styles, each with symbolic meaning. Some dances celebrated harvests or victories, others honored the spirits of ancestors. Costumes and masks enhanced the performances, turning them into living works of art. The rhythm of drums guided every movement, linking body and spirit in harmony. Dance served as a bridge between the physical and spiritual world, reinforcing social bonds and the rhythm of life itself. Art and craftsmanship. The artisans of Mali were among the finest in Africa. They worked with gold, bronze, leather, and wood to create objects that were both practical and beautiful. Goldsmiths produced jewelry, ornaments, and ceremonial items that reflected the empire's wealth. Blacksmiths forged tools, weapons, and sacred figures. Potters and weavers created household goods decorated with symbolic designs. Each craft was linked to spiritual belief. The act of creation was seen as a dialogue with the ancestors, who were believed to guide the hands of the artist. The style of Malian art was known for its balance and symbolism. Figures carved in wood or bronze often represented strength, fertility, or wisdom, blending realism with spiritual meaning. Religion and spirituality. Religion in the Mali Empire was a blend of traditional African beliefs and Islam. The people believed in one supreme creator, alongside ancestral spirits who protected families and communities. Islam spread through trade and diplomacy, especially during the reigns of Mansa Musa and his successors. It brought new forms of scholarship, architecture, and law, while traditional practices continued to flourish in daily life. This coexistence created a rich spiritual harmony, Mosques stood beside sacred groves. Islamic scholars worked alongside traditional priests. Together, they shaped a culture of tolerance and wisdom. Festivals and public life. Festivals were important moments of unity and celebration. They marked the changing seasons, successful harvests, royal anniversaries, and religious holidays. During these events, villages gathered to share food, music, and dance. The Mansa often held grand ceremonies in the capital where gifts were exchanged, oaths renewed, and justice celebrated. Feasts symbolized abundance and gratitude. They reminded everyone, from nobles to farmers, that prosperity was a shared blessing. Family and social structure. The family was the foundation of Malian society. Each household was part of a larger clan, and every individual had a role within it. Elders were deeply respected, for they carried wisdom and tradition. Marriage strengthened alliances between families and communities. Women played vital roles in trade, agriculture, and family life. They were seen as keepers of harmony and strength. Children were taught the values of respect, courage, and generosity through stories and songs. From a young age, they learned their history, their responsibilities, and the meaning of belonging to a great people. Language and communication. The main language of the empire was Mandinka, though many others were spoken across the vast territory. Multilingualism was common, especially in trade and diplomacy. Griots and poets elevated language into an art form. Their mastery of words allowed them to persuade, comfort, and inspire. Speech was considered a powerful force, a reflection of thought and truth. The proverb, a key part of communication, carried deep wisdom. A single sentence could express a lesson learned over generations. Cultural exchange and influence. Because of its trade connections, Mali absorbed and shared cultural influences from many regions, North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. Arabic writing enriched local languages. New architectural styles blended with traditional forms. At the same time, Mali's music, stories, and art spread across West Africa, influencing neighboring kingdoms and later generations. This cultural exchange made Mali a bridge between worlds, African, Islamic, and global. Legacy of Mali's culture. The cultural achievements of the Mali Empire outlasted its political power. The music, oral traditions, and art of Mali continued to shape West African identity for centuries. Even today, the Epic of Sundiata is told by griots. The Kora still plays in the hands of their descendants, and the spirit of unity, respect, and wisdom that defined the empire lives on. The culture of Mali was more than a reflection of its greatness. It was the force that made that greatness possible. It gave meaning to power, order to society, and beauty to life. The administration and justice of the empire. The Mali Empire was one of the most organized political systems in medieval Africa. Its success did not rest on power alone, but on a strong system of administration and justice that kept the vast empire united. From the reign of Sundiata Keita onward, Mali's rulers built a government that combined traditional African customs with new ideas of governance influenced by Islam. The imperial government. At the center of the system stood the Mansa, the emperor. He was the supreme ruler, both political and spiritual leader, chosen by lineage and wisdom. The Mansa was considered the guardian of the land, the protector of the people, and the representative of divine authority on earth. The Mansa was assisted by a council of elders and ministers known as the Gabata, or the Great Assembly. This body included nobles, clan leaders, religious scholars, generals, and representatives from important provinces. Their role was to advise the emperor, approve major decisions, and ensure that the laws of the empire were respected. This balance of power between the emperor and his council allowed the government to remain stable while respecting the traditions of collective leadership that were deeply rooted in Mande society. The division of the empire. The Mali Empire was vast, covering lands that stretched from the Atlantic coast to the Niger River and beyond. To manage such a large territory, the empire was divided into provinces, each governed by a farba, or royal governor appointed by the Mansa. The farba was responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining order, and protecting trade routes in his region. He also had the duty to ensure loyalty to the empire and to send reports and tribute to the capital. Local chiefs and village leaders retained authority over their own communities as long as they respected imperial law and paid tribute. This system allowed Mali to rule diverse peoples while preserving local customs and autonomy. The role of the Gabata. The Gabata, or the Great Assembly, was an essential institution in the administration of the empire. It represented the unity of Mande clans and symbolized the spirit of collective governance established by Sundiata Kayata. It met to discuss matters of war, peace, succession, and justice. Its members came from the most respected families and guilds of the empire, each with specific responsibilities. Some represented warriors, others farmers, traders, or spiritual leaders. This assembly ensured that the voice of every part of society could be heard, reinforcing the empire's stability and sense of shared destiny. The Law of Sundiata. The foundation of Mali's justice system was known as the Kurukan Fuga, or the Charter of Sundiata. According to oral tradition, this charter was proclaimed after the victory at the Battle of Karina and served as a constitution for the empire. It established the principles of social harmony, respect for human dignity, and the rights and duties of every citizen. The charter promoted values such as unity, peace, hospitality, and fairness. Among its rules were the protection of women, children, and foreigners, the respect for property and life, the duty of solidarity between clans and families, the right to free speech in public councils. These laws reflected a deep moral and social philosophy that guided the empire for centuries and are considered one of the earliest declarations of human rights in history. The system of justice. Justice in Mali was based on both traditional and Islamic principles. The Mansa was the supreme judge, but local courts handled most cases. In towns and villages, disputes were settled by councils of elders, often assisted by Islamic judges known as qadis. These courts dealt with issues such as marriage, trade, inheritance, and crime. Punishments were designed to restore balance rather than to destroy lives. The goal was reconciliation and moral correction. Only serious crimes received harsh sentences. The reputation of Mali's justice was so strong that travelers like Ibn Battuta described it as one of the most orderly and fair societies of their time. The collection of taxes and tribute. Taxes were vital to the empire's administration. Each province and market paid tribute to the central government, often in gold, salt, or livestock. Caravans and merchants paid tolls at checkpoints, ensuring that trade routes remained safe and profitable. A portion of these taxes funded the army, infrastructure, and welfare of the people. The fair collection of taxes without excessive burden contributed to the stability and loyalty of its subjects. The role of religion in administration. Islam played an important role in the governance of Mali, particularly from the reign of Mansa Musa onward. Scholars and clerics advised the court on matters of law, ethics, and diplomacy. However, traditional African customs remained deeply respected. The Mansa maintained relationships with local priests and diviners, ensuring spiritual balance between the new faith and ancestral beliefs. This dual system created a government that was both sacred and practical, one that valued both divine justice and human wisdom. The army and the maintenance of order. The imperial army also acted as an instrument of law and order. Soldiers protected trade routes, enforced the authority of the Mansa, and intervened when provinces rebelled or conflicts arose. The presence of the army ensured peace and security, allowing markets to flourish and justice to be applied without fear. Communication and record keeping. Efficient communication was essential for governing such a large empire. Messengers carried orders, taxes, and reports between provinces and the capital. Although the Mande people valued oral communication, Islam introduced Arabic writing, which was used in administration, record-keeping, and diplomacy. This combination of oral and written systems allowed the empire to function with remarkable precision. The principles of good governance. At the heart of Mali's administration was a strong belief in justice, honesty, and responsibility. A good ruler was expected to listen to his people, respect advice, and act with fairness. Corruption was condemned, and leaders who abused power could be removed by the council. This moral code helped preserve stability and respect for the empire's institutions. Legacy of Mali's administrative system. The administrative and legal systems of the Mali Empire set an example for later West African states. The ideas of the Kurukan Fuga, the Gabara, and the Mansa's authority influenced generations of rulers and societies. The empire proved that justice and order were as essential to greatness as wealth and conquest. Its government showed that harmony between tradition and innovation could create lasting power. Long after the empire's decline, its model of governance remained a symbol of wisdom and balance, remembered in the songs of griots and the laws of successor kingdoms. The diplomacy and foreign relations of the empire. The Mali Empire was not only a center of power and wealth within West Africa, but also an influential force across the wider world. Its rulers understood that true greatness depended not only on military strength or internal prosperity, but also on diplomacy, alliances, and trade relations. Through these, Mali established its reputation as one of the most respected empires of the medieval world. The spirit of diplomacy. From the reign of Sundiata Keita, Mali's rulers valued negotiation and alliance over endless warfare. The Mande tradition encouraged dialogue between clans and kingdoms, seeking harmony through mutual respect. The Mansa, as the supreme leader, was both a warrior and a diplomat. He maintained relations with neighboring rulers through gifts, marriages, and treaties. Ambassadors were sent to other kingdoms to represent Mali's interests, to deliver messages of peace, or to secure trade partnerships. Through these, Mali established its reputation as one of the most respected empires of the medieval world. Relations with neighboring kingdoms. Mali Empire shared borders with powerful states and communities, including the Songhai to the east, the Mosi to the south, the Tuareg of the desert, and the Wolof and Serer kingdoms near the Atlantic. With the Songhai, relations were complex. At times, there were allies. At other times, rivals. The city of Dao, under Songhai rule, was an important commercial and cultural center that Mali sought to control. Eventually, Gao would become independent, but during the height of Mali's power, it recognized the authority of the Mansa. With the Mosi kingdoms, relations were marked by tension and occasional warfare. The Mosi raided parts of the empire, but Mali's armies often pushed them back. Despite these conflicts, trade continued and mutual respect grew between the two peoples. With the desert Tuareg, Mali maintained careful diplomacy. The Tuareg controlled key routes across the Sahara and could either protect or threaten the caravans that carried Mali's wealth to the north. Through negotiation and tribute, the empire ensured safe passage for its traders. Relations with North Africa and the Arab world. Mali's power and wealth drew the attention of the Islamic world, especially after Mansa Musa's reign. The empire maintained strong relations with cities such as Cairo, Tunis, and Fez, which were centers of scholarship and commerce. Diplomatic missions were exchanged between Mali and these North African states. Gold, ivory, and slaves were traded for salt, textiles, horses, and books. The spread of Islam strengthened these ties. Scholars, traders, and architects from the Arab world came to Mali, while Malian pilgrims and students traveled north to learn and trade. This created a vibrant cultural exchange that enriched both regions. The pilgrimage of Mansa Musa to Mecca in 1324. This journey was not only a religious act, but also a grand display of Mali's wealth and prestige. Mansa Musa traveled with thousands of attendants, soldiers, and servants, carrying so much gold that his passage through Cairo caused the local currency to lose value temporarily. He distributed gold to the poor, commissioned mosques, and established relations with scholars and rulers across the Islamic world. This journey made Mali known throughout Africa, the Middle East, and even Europe. Chroniclers in Cairo, Damascus, and Venice wrote of the Golden Empire in the heart of Africa, ruled by a wise and generous monarch. Relations with Europe. Though distant, Europe became aware of Mali through Arab intermediaries. European maps of the 14th century began to show the empire and its ruler holding a gold nugget, symbolizing its immense wealth. Mali's gold entered European markets through North African trade routes, contributing to the prosperity of cities such as Genoa and Venice. European merchants and explorers grew increasingly curious about the land that produced so much gold. While direct diplomatic contact between Mali and Europe was limited, the empire's influence extended indirectly through trade and legend. Mali became a symbol of both mystery and abundance and European imagination. Alliances and marriages. Diplomacy in Mali was also reinforced through strategic marriages. Royal families formed alliances with powerful clans and neighboring rulers to ensure peace and cooperation. These marriages created bonds that extended beyond politics. They strengthened trade, cultural exchange, and military support between regions. Through this system, Mali maintained unity within its vast empire and stability along its borders. Trade as a diplomatic tool. Commerce was the foundation of Mali's diplomacy. The empire's wealth depended on the safe movement of goods across its territories and into foreign lands. The rulers of Mali used trade agreements to secure peace with neighboring states. Caravans carried gold, salt, kola nuts, and other products across the Sahara to cities such as Timbuktu, Walata, and Tagaza. In return, Mali received horses, textiles, metal goods, and books. The prosperity that resulted from this exchange made Mali a respected partner in international trade. The role of scholars and envoys. Diplomats were often scholars, well-versed in both Mande traditions and Islamic law. They represented the empire's interests abroad and brought back valuable knowledge from their travels. These envoys strengthened Mali's intellectual connections with the wider Islamic world. They helped introduce new sciences, philosophies, and administrative techniques that enriched the empire's institutions. The empire's reputation. By the 14th century, Mali's name was known across 3 continents. It was regarded as a land of justice, wisdom, and prosperity. Travelers such as Ibn Battuta described it as one of the most secure and well-governed realms in the world. The empire's reputation attracted merchants, scholars, and adventurers who brought new skills and ideas to its cities. The decline of diplomatic power. As the empire began to weaken in the 15th century, its diplomatic influence also declined. Rebellions in the provinces, the rise of the Songhai Empire, and the shifting of trade routes gradually reduced Mali's control over foreign affairs. However, even in decline, the name of Mali continued to command respect. Its legacy as a model of wise diplomacy and cultural exchange endured long after its fall. The legacy of Mali's diplomacy. The diplomacy of the Mali Empire was based on a deep understanding of balance between power and peace, wealth and generosity, faith and tolerance. Through its alliances, trade relations, and cultural exchanges, Mali built bridges across the African continent and beyond. It proved that diplomacy guided by wisdom and respect could be as powerful as armies or gold. The empire's foreign relations laid the foundation for centuries of communication between West Africa, the Islamic world, and Europe, a legacy that continues to inspire the idea of peaceful coexistence and international respect.
The culture, education, and knowledge in the Empire of Mali. The Mali Empire was not only a land of wealth and power, but also a center of learning, culture, and intellectual progress. Its cities, particularly Timbuktu, Dene, and Gao, became renowned across Africa and the Islamic world for their schools, scholars, and libraries. Knowledge was both a spiritual and practical pursuit, seen as the foundation of justice, governance, and civilization. The cultural foundations of the empire. Culture in Mali was deeply rooted in the traditions of the Mande people. Long before the rise of Islam, the Mande had developed a rich oral culture centered around the griot, or jelly, the storyteller, historian, and guardian of memory. The griots preserved the history of the empire through song, poetry, and speech. These oral traditions were not simply entertainment. They were a form of education. Through the griots, each generation learned about the values of courage, loyalty, and justice that held the empire together. When Islam spread throughout Mali, it did not erase these traditions. Instead, it merged with them, creating a unique synthesis between African heritage and Islamic scholarship. The rise of Islamic learning. From the reign of Mansa Musa onward, education and scholarship became a priority of the state. Islamic schools, or madrasas, were established in major cities. Students studied the Quran, Arabic grammar, law, mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. Scholars from Egypt, Morocco, and Andalusia were invited to teach in Mali, while Malian students traveled to places such as Cairo, Fez, and Mecca to further their studies. This exchange created a powerful intellectual network that connected West Africa to the great centers of learning in the Muslim world. Timbuktu, in particular, rose to prominence as a beacon of knowledge. Its universities attracted thousands of students and teachers. It became known not only for religious studies, but also for its expertise in science, medicine, and literature. Timbuktu, the city of scholars. Timbuktu's reputation as a city of learning was established during the reign of Mansa Musa, who brought architects and scholars from his pilgrimage to Mecca. One of the most famous of these was Abu Isaac
al-Sahili, who designed several of the city's great mosques, including the Jinga Rebbe Mosque. These mosques served as centers of learning. Attached to them were schools and libraries where manuscripts were copied, studied, and preserved. By the 15th century, Timbuktu housed one of the largest collections of books in Africa. Its scholars, such as Ahmed Baba, became famous for their works on law, ethics, and history. They wrote in Arabic and local languages, ensuring that knowledge was accessible to both the elite and the people. The role of the griots in oral knowledge. While written scholarship flourished, oral knowledge remained the foundation of cultural identity. The griots continue to play an essential role in society, preserving the history of kings, clans, and great events. They were also advisors to rulers, reminding them of the lessons of the past and the moral code of the Mande Charter. Their words carried authority because they embodied the memory of the nation. This balance between oral and written traditions made the Mali Empire culturally unique, a civilization where wisdom came from both the spoken word and the written page. Art, music, and architecture. Art in Mali reflected both spiritual and practical aspects of life. Music accompanied every important event: birth, harvest, war, and celebration. Instruments such as the kora, the balafon, and the ngoni became symbols of Mande identity. Architecture also flourished, blending local materials and Islamic design. The mosques of Timbuktu and Digne, built with mud brick and wooden beams, remain masterpieces of African architecture. Their distinctive style influenced building traditions across the Sahel region. Craftsmen and artisans were highly respected. They produced jewelry, leatherwork, textiles, and sculptures that reflected the empire's wealth and creativity. These works were not only for beauty, but also carried spiritual and cultural significance. The spread of literacy in manuscripts. The empire's commitment to learning encouraged literacy among the elite and the clerical class. Scribes copied thousands of manuscripts by hand, covering subjects such as theology, law, medicine, astronomy, and poetry. Books were valuable possessions, often passed down through families as treasures. Scholars maintained libraries in Timbuktu and Digne that rivaled those of Cairo and Cordoba in size and importance. These manuscripts demonstrated that African civilization had a long and deep engagement with written knowledge. They also served as a link between generations, preserving the wisdom of centuries. Education and social mobility. Education in Mali was not limited to the elite. Children of merchants, artisans, and scholars could study in local schools. Knowledge offered opportunities for advancement, both socially and economically. Students who excelled could become judges, imams, teachers, or advisors to the Mansa. Learning was seen as both a duty and an honor, a means of serving God and the community. This emphasis on education helped create a society where intellect was valued alongside wealth and military strength. The integration of religion and knowledge. Islam in Mali promoted literacy and intellectual inquiry, but it also coexisted with traditional African beliefs. Scholars often combined Islamic philosophy with local wisdom, creating a worldview that valued balance, morality, and harmony. The pursuit of knowledge was seen as a spiritual act, an expression of faith. To learn was to understand the divine order of the universe. This attitude inspired generations of scholars to seek wisdom not only from books, but from life itself. The role of women in culture and learning. Women in the Mali Empire also participated in cultural and educational life. While men often dominated formal scholarship, women played key roles as teachers within families and as transmitters of oral traditions. Some women from noble or scholarly families received education in Arabic and theology. Others were respected poets and storytellers who contributed to the cultural richness of the empire. Their influence in maintaining moral and social values ensured that the spirit of Mali's culture endured through time. The legacy of knowledge in Mali. The intellectual achievements of the Mali Empire left a lasting mark on Africa and the world. The manuscripts of Timbuktu, preserved for centuries, remain one of the greatest testaments to African scholarly tradition. The combination of oral and written learning created a civilization that valued both memory and reason, both tradition and innovation. Even after the empire's decline, its cultural legacy continued to inspire later kingdoms such as Songhai and remains a symbol of Africa's intellectual heritage. The enduring spirit of learning. The Mali Empire proved that knowledge could be as powerful as gold or armies. Through its schools, libraries, and griots, it showed that the pursuit of wisdom is the foundation of justice and greatness. Its legacy reminds the world that Africa has long been a land of thinkers, poets, and scholars, a place where learning shaped the destiny of nations and the hearts of people.
The economy and daily life in the Empire of Mali. The Mali Empire was one of the richest states of its time, built on gold, trade, and agriculture. Its people lived in an organized society where every group had a role in maintaining balance and prosperity. Agriculture. Farming was the main activity. People grew millet, rice, and sorghum in the fertile valleys of the Niger River. They raised cattle, goats, and sheep, and fishing provided food and trade goods. Gold and salt. Gold was Mali's greatest source of wealth. The mines of Bambouk and Buri supplied much of the world's gold. Salt, mined in the Sahara, was just as valuable and traded for food and goods. Trade. Mali controlled the trans-Saharan trade routes. Caravans carried gold, ivory, and slaves north and brought back cloth and horses. Cities like Timbuktu and Janneh became major trading centers. Markets and crafts. Local markets were busy places where farmers, herders, and artisans exchanged goods. Craftsmen made tools, jewelry, and textiles that were sold across the empire. Women played an active role in trade and production. Daily life. Most people lived in villages, working the land and following seasonal rhythms. In towns, merchants and scholars filled the markets and mosques. Meals were based on grains, fish, and vegetables. Clothing was made from cotton, often dyed with natural colors. Balance and morality. Wealth in Mali was guided by moral values. Generosity and justice were praised, and greed was condemned. Prosperity was meant to serve the whole community. Legacy. Mali's economy was a model of organization and fairness. It showed that prosperity came from both hard work and moral balance, a lesson that influenced West Africa for centuries. The decline and legacy of the Mali Empire. After centuries of greatness, the Mali Empire began to weaken. Internal struggles, external attacks, and changing trade routes slowly eroded its power. Yet, its legacy continued to shape West Africa for generations. Internal weakness. After the reign of Mansa Musa, the empire faced succession crises. Kings fought for the throne, and unity was lost. Local chiefs began to act independently, keeping taxes and soldiers for themselves. External pressures. The Tuareg and Mosi invaded from the north and south. The Songhai, once a vassal state, grew stronger and began to challenge Mali's control over trade routes and territories.
The rise of Songhai. By the 15th century, the Songhai Empire, led by Sunni Ali, took control of key cities like Timbuktu and Gaul. Mali's influence faded, and its borders shrank to the region around Niani. Shifting trade routes. The trade routes that once passed through Mali began to move eastward towards Songhai and new centers of commerce. Gold production declined, and the empire lost its economic foundation. Cultural continuity. Even as political power declined, Mali's culture endured. The Mande people preserved their traditions, language, and laws. Griots continued to tell the story of Sundiata and the golden age of Mali, keeping its memory alive. Legacy of leadership. The Mali Empire left an enduring model of governance, justice, and learning. It showed that an African kingdom could be both wealthy and wise, powerful and moral. The idea of leadership through justice and generosity influenced later empires and communities. Conclusion. The fall of Mali did not erase its greatness. Its memory survived in stories, architecture, and culture. The empire's rise and fall became a symbol of African strength, resilience, and creativity, a legacy that still inspires the descendants of the Mande today.